Hello students, Sanvi is here with us today. So we are on the chapter Plant Kingdom. There are 5 types of plants: algae, bryophyta, pteridophyta, gymnosperms and angiosperms. So we have completed with algae and bryophyta, and right now we are doing pteridophyta. Division: pteridophyta. There are 2 types of plants in pteridophyta: ferns and second one is horsetails. But majority they are ferns. Pteridophytes, 4 classes there are in this line of evolution. They are Coelopsida, Lycopsida, Sphenopsida, Pteropsida. Ferns, these ferns, these mainly appear in the Pteropsida class. Then Sphenopsida, there are mainly horsetails. Lycopsida also there are ferns only, and these are also ferns only. Lycopsida, some examples are Selaginella. Then for horsetails there is one important example, Equisetum. In Pteropsida, one example I will cite, that will be Dryopteris. And there are examples in Coelopsida also. These have evolved and almost vanished also. Most of them are found in the fossil forms only. Some few living fossils are there. Living fossils means few species are in existence. Most of them have become extinct. So the ones they are living, they are called as living fossils. And then some more evolved, then they got even more evolved. And Pteropsida. Ferns can be easily identified with their leaflet-like appearance. Okay, they usually have such kind of compound leaves, and horsetails are shown by this appearance. It is important that we study Dryopteris and Selaginella in more detail in this section. Why Selaginella of all? Because Dryopteris we are learning because they are higher ferns, and Selaginella why we are learning because they are the ones of all these which are more similar to higher plants like gymnosperms and angiosperms. They show more similarities to higher plants than these. So probably they are the ancestors of the higher plants like gymnosperms and angiosperms. So what those similarities are and how pteropsidans lack those similarities we will find. In all the 5 types of plants, there are 2 generations. Okay. One 2n generation followed by a n generation. 2n and n? You know what is haploid and diploid? I've heard. Okay, haploid means having one set of chromosomes. We have DNA now, compacted into chromosomes. You know how many chromosomes we have? We have 46 chromosomes per cell. The count is taken according to one cell. So each of our cell has 46 chromosomes, okay? Those 46 chromosomes now, 23 have come from the male gamete and 23 have come from the female egg cell, okay? Because of the fusion of both of them, they formed a zygote. So the male gamete or sperm had 23 chromosomes which came from father, and the female gamete, that is the egg cell, has another 23 chromosomes, okay? And they are fused together and they have become 46 chromosomes. So each of our cell has 2 sets of chromosomes. That's called diploid. But if you imagine that gamete, that gamete has 23 chromosomes only. Like a sperm has 23 chromosomes only. So it is not diploid, it is haploid. It has only one set of chromosomes, okay? So I am 2n, right? I am diploid. And then you were born. You are also diploid. You also have 2 sets of chromosomes. After me, you were formed. Is that correct? That is not correct. After me, there was another generation in between you and me. Okay, and you are the 3rd generation. You will ask how? So 2n, myself, have given rise to those gametes, female egg cell I have produced, That egg cell is haploid, and I am diploid. So that is my first child. I have given rise to that egg cell. And that egg cell then has given rise to you. That is the in-between generation. So you're actually the 3rd generation. So 2n gives rise to n, and n then fuses and gives rise to you. 2n. This is known as alternation of generation. Why it is called alternation of generation?
Because first it's 2n, then it becomes n, and then it fuses to become 2 and becomes 2n.
So there is an alternation of generation. And when you produce your child, again there will be one n generation in between, and then n will fuse and then will form the 2n. Alternation of generation, this is called. In plants also, all 5 types of plants, there is alternation of generation. There is a 2n phase followed by an n phase. 2n will give rise to n will give rise to 2n. That's called alternation of generation, okay? The 2n stage is called as sporophyte and the n phase is called as gametophyte. The size of this gametophyte will differ according to the different types of plants. Okay, for example, in algae, then pteridophytes, algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, angiosperms. Can you relate? Size of the gametophyte? The gametophyte has decreased in size. And for sporophyte, let's see. Will you follow this now? Over evolution, the size of the sporophyte has increased in size, and size of the gametophyte has decreased in size. If you consider the angiosperms of now, no, their main plant body is 2n only, like how ours is 2n, and the gametophyte that they produce, no, is very, very small sized. They are in the flowers, very small sized gametophytes. But that was not the case way back in evolution. Way back in evolution, no, that gametophytic plant body used to be the main plant body, and it was haploid. So those were the first formed plants, and they are obviously less in evolution. So in the start only there won't be complexity. No, in the start there will be simplicity, and that's what they did. And then slowly they realized that N used to give rise to that 2N generation, which was just one small single cell in the algae. But in bryophytes, the sporophytes started slightly gaining in size, and the gametophytes started slightly becoming smaller compared to the sizes that were attained in algae. And in pteridophytes, the main plant body started becoming 2N, that is the sporophyte. So these ferns that we are talking about, the main plant body is the sporophyte. And the gametophyte is very reduced, like in gymnosperms and all, the entire big trees, which was one-celled in algae, in gymnosperms and all, that sporophyte has become big tree. And the gametophytes have become very, very reduced and come into them in their cones and single celled. And even we are like that, no? Angiosperms which are more evolved, and we are also more evolved. 2N is quite large, the main body, and the N is very small. So why do you think evolution has preferred to make 2N instead of N? Won't 2N, two sets of chromosomes won't be preferred compared to N?
Because it's both male and female.
Yes, it will have components of both the parents. There will be two sets of chromosomes, instead of one. Yes. So it can prepare more proteins. It can become more efficient when it has two sets of chromosomes compared to a cell that has just one set of chromosome. So 2 is better than 1. So we are talking about Pteridophyta right now. Yeah. In Pteridophyta, the main plant body is the sporophyte. We want to see now how this sporophyte is able to, how in its life cycle it produces the N stage, okay, that is the gametophyte, and how that N produces the 2N again is what we are going to see in a life cycle for both of them, this one and this one. So let's start with the life cycle of Pteridophytes. Life cycle of Bryopteris we are doing right now. Bryopteris is also called as male shield fern, and you will tell me why it is called as male shield fern when you find out the answer when we are doing the life cycle. So this is the Bryopteris fern. This is the sporophyte, the main plant body. It is green, photosynthetic. It is independent. Independent meaning it doesn't need the gametophyte. The sporophytes of the classes before it, like bryophytes and algae, the sporophyte used to be dependent on the gametophyte. It used to be born on it, like how we bear the N. Okay, it's not independent outside. The sporophyte used to be dependent on the gametophyte earlier on. But now, from this time onwards, it is separated from the gametophyte and out in the open on its own. The main plant body is the gametophyte in algae, in bryophytes as well.
But over here it is the sporophyte.
Yes.
Which is the main plant body.
That is true. These leaves, these are called true leaves. Then this is a stem, true stem. And these roots that you see here, these are true roots. Everything is true. Why? True roots are the ones that are 2N. Prior to this, the gametophytic plant bodies of algae and bryophytes also had leaf-like, root-like structures. But they were not true roots, leaves and stem. They were root-like, leaf-like, shoot-like structures in algae as well as in bryophytes. Okay, but over here, what you see over here of this sporophyte, which has become green and photosynthetic and big in this, it has true roots, true leaves and true stem, which are diploid. This leaf over here, it's not a simple leaf. It's a macrophyll. Macrophyll, also called as megaphyll. This is a compound leaf. Compound leaf means,
Compound leaf means like many leaves are together.
This is actually one leaf.
Okay.
These are not leaves. These are actually its leaflets.
Oh, like
okay.
A coconut tree.
Like a coconut tree. It's a compound leaf. Compound leaf, and it is a big sized leaf, as you can see. In some ferns, there are big sized leaves, and some ferns like Selaginella has very small sized leaves. Selaginella has microphylls. Microphylls meaning small sized leaves. Macrophylls, okay, large sized leaves. The stem that it has it's different from the normal stems, It's like an underground stem. It is called rhizome. You must be knowing about rhizome, right?
Yes, rhizomes, they are present in ginger, right?
Yes.
As a reproductive.
That is true. Some leaves, if you can see, they are in such coiled kind of manner. No, they are not tendrils, they are young leaves. young leaves which are coiled phenomenon is called as circinate vernation. This detail is there in Ames, so let me start it. The leaves, on their base has such kind of hair-like structures. These hair-like structures are called as ramenta. Ramenta are known to protect this leaf when the leaf was small. Protection. So this is your pteridophyte, this is your fern. Why are we learning the life cycle? We want to know how one 2n gives rise to another 2n, like itself. That will be the end of that life cycle. So in between events we want to see. So this is a compound leaf. These are called as leaflets. Let me take one leaflet. What do you see?
There is some like dot.
Yeah, you see some dot kind of things. We are looking at the ventral side of this leaf. Ventral meaning this is the dorsal side, this is the ventral side of the leaf. This is the dorsal, this is the ventral, the lower side. This is the ventral side. You see such kind of dot kind of structures over there. These dot kind of structures, they are reddish brown in color. And they look like bindiya like, okay, on the lower side. Have you ever noticed it on Grana's garden, this Dryopteris? If I show you a picture of Dryopteris, you will realize.
And that too, they are only like, they go along the main vein. Like.
Yes, in 2 rows.
Yeah.
These reddish brown structures are called as sori.
Okay.
Single is called as a sorus. Let us look at one of this sorus in more detail. A sorus. This is a Ames related detail. This is the outer cap. The outer cap is called as the indusium and it aids in the dehiscence process of what I will tell you. Inside this you will see such kind of balloon like structures and these are called as sporangia. Single is called sporangium. All these are 2n structures because they are parts of the sporophyte. What is there inside each of this sporangium we will need to see. So I am elaborating one sporangium right here. A sporangium which is also a 2n structure. So this is like a sporangium with a small opening. The rest of the wall is called as annulus. And there is an opening here which is called as the stomium. Inside this sporangium, there are some cells which are also 2n and these cells are called as the spore mother cells. Spore mother cells. Have you realized why these structures are called as sporophytes and gametophytes? Sporophyte means spore producing plant body. Phyte means plant body. Spore producing plant body. And gametophyte is the gamete producing plant body, the haploid. So how will it produce spores? It will bear such kind of structures on behind, okay, with such bag-like structures bearing 2n cells, which will undergo the process of meiosis. Meiosis is wherein one cell divides to form 4 haploid cells. What has happened right here is this sporophyte has given rise to the N generation finally. 4 haploid cells have been formed. These are the first cells of the gametophyte, the spores that are produced, okay? These are the spores that it has finally been able to produce and these are the first cells of gametophyte. So these spores, these spores will be liberated into the air and the spores will fall down onto the ground. The spores will germinate on the ground and will form gametophytes which will look like this. Heart-shaped structures which appear in this manner in the soil.
Oh.
It has liberated the spores into the air and the spores have fallen onto the ground and right now they are away from this plant. So there such kind of gametophytes will be formed in the ground next to it. These are the gametophytes. This is the gametophyte. It is called as the prothallus. It is green, it is independent and it is inconspicuous. Inconspicuous means what? Very small size. Because it is the gametophyte, it will bear sex organs, isn't it? It has to produce gametes. Gametes will be produced inside the sex organ. This is the ventral side. Female sex organs which are called as archegonia. The male sex organs are called as antheridia. So this is the gametophyte, it's called as the prothallus. Prothallus, very important terms in NCERT. This is a monoecious characteristic. Monoecious meaning having male and female sex organs on same thallus. Meaning I am having just female sex organs. Now, do I have male sex organs? Papa has only male sex organs, doesn't he? Does he have female sex organs? No. So when an organism has male and female sex organs on separate thalli, that is called dioecious. And these are monoecious. So one generation has given rise to the next generation. At this point, the next generation has been formed. If you see, okay, 2n has given rise to n. And now we are doing the n stage. Okay, how this n should ideally form the next 2n. Then the life cycle will be complete, exactly like
Okay.
We look at the sex organs now. What happens there? So we further look at Antheridia and Archegonium. So this is an Archegonium and this is the Antheridium, the male sex organ. This is supposed to be flask shaped and this is supposed to be club shaped. Archegonium has two portions here. This is the neck region, this is the venter region. In the neck region there is one cell which is binucleated. That cell is called as the neck canal cell. So there will be one cell which will be binucleated. See, the neck canal cell, NCC. And in the venter region, there are two cells here. In the beginning, there is one venter canal cell, and this will be your egg cell. Finally, egg cell has been formed. Gametophyte has only one job. It is gamete production. Sporophyte has one job, spore production. Produced male sex organ. Inside this, there are certain cells which are called as the sperm mother cells. Sperm mother cells, not spore mother cells. Spore mother cells were 2N, which will produce the spores. And these are sperm mother cells, which are haploid. Haploid and those are diploid. From 2N to N formation, it had to undergo the process of meiosis. Halving. Meiosis is halving the ploidy. 4 are produced per one cell.
Yeah.
Meiosis. Okay? Sperm mother cells, haploid. When it undergoes division, that will be mitosis, not meiosis. Mitosis produces 2 cells. Mitosis is division into 2 only cells. Both of them will be of the same ploidy as the previous one. If a 2N cell undergoes mitosis,
It will become 2 separate ends.
2 separate 2Ns, because a 2N is divided by mitosis, no? So 2 separate 2Ns will be formed. Over here, it's N. It is divided into mitosis. It will be 2 separate NN. So the sperm mother cells have undergone the process of mitosis to produce 2 cells here, which will differentiate further and produce 2 sperm cells. 2 sperms, also called as antherozoids, will be produced here. They are spiral shaped and they are multiflagellate. Now what will happen is, it will start to rain. There will be water everywhere. These antherozoids require water for bringing about their sexual reproduction. They will swim in the water and reach the Archegonia. Archegonia of some other prothallus, not of its same one, because this one is protandrous. The Antheridia mature before the Archegonia. The sperm cells will be liberated from here. They will travel in water and reach the Archegonia of other prothallus. Why they will reach the Archegonia of the prothallus is that they will be attracted towards certain chemicals which will be liberated by this neck canal cell. Because of the rain, this neck canal cell will dissolve in water and will release certain chemotactic substances. Chemotactic substances like malic acid will be liberated. The antherozoids will swim in the water and reach the Archegonia via chemotaxis under the influence of chemicals like malic acid and bring about fertilization process. So there will be fertilization. Fertilization will be oogamous type and it will result in the formation of a single celled structure that will be the zygote. Zygote will be the first cell of the next generation, the 2N generation, that will be sporophyte, the new sporophyte, the next generation. So N has successfully created the next generation, that is the 2N. Where has the zygote formed? It has formed in the Archegonia. Write this, right? So let's draw this prothallus, this heart-shaped structure. This zygote is going to grow and it will form a young leafy fern in this manner. This will be called as the young sporophyte, which will be 2N, over the gametophyte, and then eventually this structure, this young sporophyte will grow and the gametophyte is going to degenerate. The gametophyte will be made to degenerate in the soil and on top will grow the new sporophyte and the next generation of the sporophyte will be born in this manner. So 2N is giving rise to N and then N is back again giving rise to the 2N. From here, this is the N stage. This will be the 2N stage from here. So if you plot this on a life cycle like this, majority of its portion of its life cycle is spent as a 2N, little bit of its life portion is spent as an N, right? N is very short-lived and it will degenerate eventually. And the sporophyte remains the main plant body. Diplohaplontic life cycle, this is called. Alternately, haplodiplontic, this term is also used. More accurately, it is diplohaplontic life cycle. Pteridophytes are known to show diplohaplontic life cycle / haplodiplontic life cycle. By formation of the gametes is giving rise to the 2N stage back again. Alternation of generation you are able to see here. 2N giving rise to N, N giving rise to 2N, 2N again giving rise to N, N giving rise to 2N. Alternation of generation and diplohaplontic life cycle. Protandrous, this term means that the Antheridia mature first. If both had matured at the same time, the antherozoids from one prothallus will fertilize the egg cell of the same thallus, which they do not want self-fertilization. So there is protandry, wherein antheridia will be liberated first, and by the time they reach other prothalli, the female gametes would have been matured. Can you tell me why Dryopteris is called as the male shield fern? That's the indusium. Okay, it looks like a shield. That is the reason why it's called as the male shield fern. If you closely look at these spores are all of the same type. Having same type of spores is called as homospory. Homosporous. Dryopteris is homosporous. Selaginella is heterosporous, which is more close to the higher plants. Okay, I told you Selaginella is close to the higher plants, so that's how it is. It produces two types of spores. Higher plants also produce two types of spores. Okay, pollen grain and the megaspore. Okay, this one produces one type of spore only. That's why it is called as homosporous. Another term, megaphyllus. This sporangium is actually closed at the stomium. Eventually, because of the drying of the annulus, it's going to just shrivel like this and break open at the stomium. The stomium is the point of dehiscence of the spores inside. When the spores are liberated, this indusium is also going to burst open. This indusium will also help in the dispersal of the spores because of the contraction. Catapult mechanism it is called. Catapult mechanism dispersal. Indusium and the annulus are involved in the dehiscence of spores. The movement of motile spores towards the female gamete is called zooidogamy. In angiosperms, there is siphonogamy, wherein non-motile sperms are carried to the female gamete via a pollen tube. Siphon tube, via a tube. There is siphonogamy in angiosperms, and in these guys there is zooidogamy. Zoo means animal. They will move on their own and reach the female gamete. Zooidogamy. So with that we complete the life cycle of Dryopteris. In the next class we are going to look at Selaginella in more detail.
महादेव के नाम पे सब्सक्राइब कर दें।